Oh, it's a huge pleasure and honor to be here, Heather, on your show.
So you are the Member of Parliament?
I am the Member of Parliament for a riding called Courtenay-Alberni, which is the farthest riding to the west, well, one of the farthest ridings to the west in Canada. So it's, very far distance from Ottawa. Takes about 11 hours on average. Sometimes I'll get a good trip and it's 9, but it's a car ride for me. It's about an hour and a half drive to the airport in Nanaimo, a flight to Vancouver, a long wait, and then a flight to Ottawa. So it's incredible riding to be able to represent 31 communities in our riding. So I think it's the most beautiful riding in the country. I think that would be hard to argue.
What is a Member of Parliament?
So a Member of Parliament is the elected representative that sits in the House of Commons and represents their constituents from a select area. And there's 338 Members of Parliament in Canada, and they convene in Ottawa to debate issues of federal jurisdiction. So many different issues, and also to discuss issues that are beyond Canada, so our role in the world as well.
What sort of issues do you discuss?
So it's a wide variety of issues, everything from ensuring that Canadians have access to health care, and then that also works with other jurisdictions like provincial governments who deliver health care in Canada. So it's kind of a partnership. Ensuring that Indigenous peoples have access to resources for their peoples, in terms of laws in Canada, that some are criminal justice of nature, some are economic in nature, some are social in nature. Ensuring that there's equity in Canada, and that is reflected whether it be through taxation or various different issues. And there's different political parties that believe that we're doing good in some areas and maybe not so well in other areas. But also in important roles that we play in the world, like I said earlier, whether it be at the United Nations, where we vote on a number of different resolutions and issues that are, regarding issues that are of international of nature, and ensuring that we have things like trade agreements with other countries, and that we're protecting children around the world who are vulnerable to conflict or to abuse, and ensuring that Indigenous peoples their rights are respected through the United Nations. So there's many different things that federal politicians discuss and create laws on, and some are domestic and some are in relation to our foreign entities as well, or partners, if you want to call it that, and as well with the United Nations.
What's the difference between an MP and an MLA?
That's a great question. So a Member of Parliament only focuses, they're supposed to only focus on federal issues, and your MLA is supposed to focus on provincial issues. So some issues, whether it be management of resources, would be provincial. The delivery of healthcare would be provincial. There's overlap, like there's a federal provincial partnership when it comes to funding of healthcare. So there's some overlap as well. Provincial governments are also responsible for local governments. So like the city of Port Alberni, where you live, Heather, they're kind of the overseer, and they fall under provincial government legislation and mandate. So the MLA also represents a much smaller area than a federal MP. So they sit about 5 months of the year. Members of Parliament sit into 10 months of the year. So we sit differently. We have different mandates, different laws and different things that we're responsible for. But also we all have something in common, in that we're elected by the people. We have a duty to represent the people, in whether it be Ottawa, in the Parliament buildings, or in the legislature in Victoria, and to do the best we can to improve the lives of others and lift people up. So that's really important. That's what we have in common.
How do they decide what is federal and what is provincial?
Yeah, so we have a constitution which breaks down what's federal and what's provincial, and we also have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and so it's really important, whether it be on federal laws, that the federal government focuses on them, and provincial governments focus on what's provincial. But it doesn't prohibit from the federal government and provincial government to work collaboratively to tackle really important challenges we face. Whether it is under provincial or federal jurisdiction, sometimes there's overlap, sometimes there's opportunity for the federal government to provide resources to issues that might even be under provincial jurisdiction to support them. But quite often the federal government's really good at downloading our problems and challenges to provincial governments, and then they're really good at downloading to local governments to solve our problems without the adequate resources. And so typically there's huge gaps, and that's why we have some of the problems that we face today, is because there's been, government after government trying to divert responsibility, which has been really disappointing. So we have some significant issues that you're aware of. Even for someone who's in grade 7, you're very astute, and there are issues that are very visible in our community.
How would someone become an MP?
Yeah, so someone would have to first win the nomination from their political party, because we live in a multi-party system. Then they would have to win the support, the majority of the support. We live in a first past the post system is what it's called. That's how our electoral system is chosen in Canada, and it's from the British system. And you would have to have the most votes in that riding to be elected as the member of parliament. And people can even run as an independent, but there's very slim chances of getting elected given the party system and the political system structure that we're under. Whereas other countries around the world, they have different systems as well. So there's systems that are proportional in nature, and they elect people from say a different party, but sometimes they just get to vote for the person. And essentially people end up voting for the party or the system in our current system as well, but it's very much party driven.
How do you get involved with a party?
Oh, that's a good question. We have many people that are involved. Sometimes they get involved by knocking on doors during a political campaign, or by volunteering to host events for their political party, learning about their political party. Sometimes they're even just doing research, or going door knocking, or donate money to the political party, or they sit on their local executive and they provide insight, and they vote on resolutions at the national convention of their party. So they actually give that political party a mandate on their resolutions that are voted on at their federal convention. In our case, as the New Democrats, we have a convention every 2 years. And we vote on a number of resolutions, and those are positions that our party stakes out, and they're required to deliver on those important resolutions. So you can get involved in many ways politically, but you don't actually need to join a political party to be active politically. There's many ways that people can get politically active, and whether it be they see an issue that they know that there's a better pathway forward, or they see maybe there's harm being done by something in the community, and they want to rise up and protest, or be politically active, or even contact their local elected officials. They don't necessarily have to be involved in a political party per se to be active politically.
What are some ways you could be?
I'll give you an example. Tomorrow night I'm having a town hall with a bunch of youth that were protesting outside the town hall in Qualicum Beach, and they were part of a movement called Fridays for the Future, and they're really concerned about the impact of climate change, and they want to raise awareness so that adults that are making decisions for the future are listening to them. So when our leader Jagmeet Singh was in the riding, I asked Jagmeet if he would sit down with these 4 young girls and listen to them about their really important concerns. So not only did we listen to them, they developed a petition, and that petition is calling on all members of parliament to sit down and listen to youth prior to any laws or legislation that's passed in the House of Commons around climate, around anything that would have an impact on environmental issues. And I thought that was a brilliant way for them to be able to have their voice heard in Ottawa and in the House of Commons. So they went door knocking with their petition. They secured enough signatures that are required by the House of Commons, and I was able to stand up in the House of Commons and table that petition in the House of Commons. But not only did they do that, they created an e-petition with 500 signatures. The federal government's required to respond to them. So it's kind of like they're in question period, asking the government a really hard question, and they want to get results. So, and then we've taken it to the next step. Now we're creating a town hall that's led by youth to talk about what their concerns are about the impact of climate change on their future, because they feel it's unfair that they can't even vote in an election. And we're making decisions about their future. And one comment they said is, how come a 99-year-old's allowed to vote that may not live that long, but we're not eligible to vote on really important issues that are going to impact us? So we're having this town hall so they can be heard. They need to be heard. It's really important. But also I can take back some of what I hear tomorrow night to the House of Commons so I can relay their message. And something even better has come out of this. We're going to create a youth council for my constituency office. And we're going to put it out to the whole riding. Youth will be able to apply. We're going to put that out at the end of June, and over the summer we'll seek invitation to youth to apply to be part of our youth council. And I've got 2 paid interns in my office in Ottawa that are youth, that are designing the program. So it's being designed by youth for youth. And they're going to provide not just advice on climate and environmental issues, but on many different issues that impact youth. You know, not decisions that we're making in Parliament, but also things that youth see that could improve lives of other young people today and in the future. So I'm really excited about this, and it's going to be really valuable for me as a member of Parliament to be directly connected to youth and a youth advisory group.
How did you specifically get involved with politics?
I think that part of my reasoning for politics is my own personal story. So growing up, having some of our hardest challenges in life can be some of our most important, I guess our hardest stories can be some of our most important gifts in so many ways. So I was fortunate that part of my life, my mom was a single mother, so I understood hardship. I understood the challenges that single parents face. My mom married a Cree man, so I haven't lived the life of an Indigenous person, but I've had the opportunity to be a witness to some of the challenges and some of the impacts of the colonial system on Indigenous people. So I've been really gifted with this important opportunity to be able to understand some of the challenges people face today, but also a gift to kind of be a witness to some of the challenges people face, like my father in his lifetime, which I haven't got lived experience, but it's helped guide me. And also I grew up with some religion as well, as a Christian background, and I was always taught to love one another and to have empathy and to not judge. And I think those fundamental values always gave me a basis to walk in other people's shoes in terms of how I viewed life. And seeing that, I've been able to also see the inequality that happens in injustice, whether it be social, environmental, economic injustice that takes place in our society, and wanting to find solutions to fix that, to create more balance, create more love and empathy. And it takes courage. So leadership's about courage. And so what really got me first into politics was seeing people that couldn't find a place to live, and seeing my neighbors move away in Tofino. And I got involved in being political and pushing the local government to work on building affordable housing, non-market housing for people that couldn't find secure housing given the system that we're in with the free market system, and trying to find equity. So that was really what got me politically active, and some of that housing's being built actually today, and that work that I did. And I continued to see more injustices and got more involved, whether it be on environmental issues, on Indigenous rights, on social issues, and on economic issues as well. And so that's kind of led to me becoming a politician, which was something I didn't expect to be. And I got elected as a local politician in Tofino, and ran a Chamber of Commerce for many years, fighting for justice for small business people. And then later, I ran for the nomination for the federal NDP for our riding after feeling that we weren't heard. I found our MP was not available when I needed to raise my concerns at the federal level, and I felt that, like many others, that we weren't getting our share from Ottawa and that we weren't being heard. So I ran, not just after I won the nomination, I ran for office, and I was very fortunate and privileged to be successful in 2015, and then I run again twice since then, so 3 times a member of parliament.
Did anyone inspire you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, many people inspire me. Your father's one of the people that inspire me, quite honestly. And you know, I think that people have this image that you go to Ottawa and you meet a lot of famous people. And I've been to Rideau Hall and I've had dinner with presidents and prime ministers and many famous people, but they aren't the people that impress me. It's the people that are on the front lines of, you know, helping support homeless people, people that are struggling, that need love and courage and support, people that are selfless. Those are my heroes. Those are the people that impress me. So they're the leaders. Those are the people that inspire me to not just be in politics, but to fight for support for the people that they're fighting for, but for them as well, so that they don't lose hope. You know, hope matters, and hope isn't just, it's not just wishing. Hope requires action. So as a leader, I feel it's really important to support hope with action and ensure that the people that inspire me, those many people throughout our communities, that they get the support and they get the support and courage that they need in Ottawa, and they get represented in Ottawa, so that they see that we're fighting for the things that matter to them.
What sort of skills would you need to become an MP?
Oh, so there's no guidebook. There's no training manual. So you become a member of parliament, and the first thing you find out is that there's no rule book, there's no training manual, there's no right way or wrong way. The right way always is doing the best you can and doing the right thing despite the pressures of many people, because there's a lot of popular decisions that can be made, but they might not be necessarily the right thing to do. And so I would say the training you need is to be courageous, to be true to yourself, and to lead with love and courage, and stay at the high level of consciousness, I think would be the best training you could make. And doing your best every day. You don't need to be a member of parliament to be a leader, but certainly being a leader in your community gives you the experience to be a member of parliament. So I think you're going to be a great member of parliament maybe one day, Heather. I hope so.
How long have you been an MP?
It'll be 8 years in the fall. If we don't have an election before then, I don't foresee one that quickly. But I always say to people, a day of being an MP feels like a week feels like a month feels like a year. So I've been an MP for 8 years, but it's more like 96 years in the way it feels. So I feel like I've been doing it for a long time.
What's your favorite thing about being an MP?
Always getting help for people. You know, when you can see that you can move the dial just a little bit. And so I've been fortunate to be part of a party, the Democratic Party, where we've moved the dial on some really important things that are going to improve the lives of people, or are improving the lives of people. And also from a riding perspective, issues that we fought that, you know, where there was actually no action or little action on really critical issues. So seeing the results of that action, working collectively with people in our communities. We've got so many incredible people, wise people, that are doing really hard work at all levels of government. So bringing people together, working collectively on solving some of our greatest challenges, those are things that inspire me and get me excited.
What are some of the challenges you face?
Oh, there's lots of challenges. Misinformation would be the biggest challenge, I think, and that's a new one, where people are given information that isn't necessarily fact or true, or it's not evidence-based or science-based in certain circumstances, or expert-based. And so that can create stigma and or barriers to success. And when we've got big challenges, sometimes there's complex responses that are required to complex problems. And when misinformation becomes prevalent, it can sow doubt, and it can become a huge obstacle in getting the support, political support, to tackle our issues. So that would be one of them. I think also the tone, how people communicate to each other, can also be at kind of the lowest level of consciousness. I sometimes call the House of Commons the house of shame, blame, fear, and anger, because it's the tone of it is that often. And so I always try to rise above it and bring the badge of love, hope, courage, and empathy to the House of Commons, because that's what people expect of me here from our riding. People voted for me to bring that energy and to not kind of go down into that unconscious level and stay high. So I try to do that, and I think that sometimes that can be a big challenge, because it's hard to go in every day, and be hopeful sometimes when there's pushback to that. But we have to be resilient, and change is hard. It's hard work, and also it's uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable is something that I think in the past I was really afraid of. Now I accept it as something that forces me to think differently, to expand my own views sometimes that maybe I'm too dug in on as well. So it's helped me overcome huge challenges and barriers that I've created within my own self, but also to help provide solutions to our problems. And I think sometimes we need to compromise. Sometimes we need to work collectively and hear different perspectives and voices. And so our challenges can also be some of our greatest assets as well in how we solve our problems.
What did you do before being an MP?
I did lots of things. My job right before I was an MP, I was the executive director of the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, which was really focused on supporting small business, on reconciliation, on protecting our coast, which is so important as an island, as a coastal community. I was just so privileged to have that job, and I was also on local government, so I sat in council in Tofino. And before that, I was self-employed, and I had an eco store called Eco Everything, and I had a bike rental company and an art gallery, so I was an entrepreneur. And prior to that, I worked a little bit in finance. While I was in school, I worked at the bank, and I was in tourism, so I waited tables. And previous to that, I did a number of jobs, everything from working at an RV park when I was a kid to a dishwasher. And before that, I delivered newspapers. And when I was your age, I also cut people's lawns and did lots of media and stuff. And so I think my experience goes right back to when I was 8 years old, and I was selling daffodils at the side of the road like a good Vancouver Island kid would do, right? So that's my experience, and it all rolls in and helps me today. I was knocking on doors selling newspaper subscriptions, which taught me not to be afraid to knock on some stranger's door. And today, when I go knock on someone's door and ask them how they're doing, how I can better support their life and listen to them about how they feel about things are going in Ottawa, it's interesting how there's a connection to that experience to my job today. And so everything we do in life adds up to experience, and it's important because it shapes us and helps us be more worldly, if you want to call it that. And that's what's required as well as being an elected official, is understanding where people are coming from.
So you said one of the things you did was you started your own store.
Yeah.
So how did you do that?
Yeah, well, I went to Community Futures here in Port-Alberni, and I pushed really hard to get financing, and they walked me through a whole program to get my little store off the ground. And that store I grew into a number of businesses over a number of years, and I was really passionate about it, and it was hard work. So I was self-employed for almost 15 years. And so I understand what it takes to be self-employed. And that experience has helped me as an MP as well. So during the pandemic, the first thing that happened, as I remember when Stephen Harper was our Prime Minister, and we had the downfall of the economy through the recession of 2008, and they bailed out big banks and big corporations, but they did nothing for small business. And the first thing I did when the pandemic struck was I went to Jagmeet Singh, our leader, and I said, we can't let this happen again. So we fought really hard for increases to the CERB program that helped ensure that people that even own a business got support, and that workers got a wage subsidy that could help pay their wages, and businesses could get commercial rent subsidized to get them through that really difficult period, and that they could get financing through the CEBA loan. So those were really important gifts that I got from my failure, if you want to call it, through that difficult time. Helped me help many people, millions of people across our country, because I was the critic at the time for the federal NDP for small business and tourism, and I was really influential in our request to the Prime Minister in ways that we could help support Canadians.
So you said you were a critic?
Yeah, so the federal parties, they appoint someone to be their spokesperson or critic or shadow cabinet person, if you want to call it that, depending on the political party. And that person's kind of really focused on that niche area, because as you can imagine, there's so many issues. There's over 20 federal departments, so that you're dealing with some expertise, and that you've got a point person that's dealing with the many stakeholders across the country, whether it be on fisheries and oceans, which I was privileged to be the critic, or veterans affairs, where I was privileged to be the critic. And now I'm the critic of mental health and harm reduction, and also on government operations and procurement, which are really big files. And because we have a small party and smaller representation in the House of Commons, we typically carry 3 files, which is quite a lot. And we bring, really important voice to Ottawa to represent the stakeholders and our position in Ottawa. So it's just an honor and privilege to be given a file and be able to kind of focus on it. And I feel that we're being heard in Ottawa. And so I make a huge effort to be in the House of Commons. I've, since being elected, I've risen the second most in British Columbia out of all MPs in British Columbia. There's over 40 MPs in BC, and in the top 5 for Western Canada. So anybody west of Ontario, and in the top 12 of Canada. That's really hard to do when you're this far away and 3 time zones away. But I find, our message is so important, and in a lot of ways, in times, it's urgent, because I know that I'm just part of a continuum. I won't be there forever, and I want to get as much done as I can while I have this opportunity.
When you're not in Ottawa, you're here in Port Alberni. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite part about Port Alberni?
Well, so many favorite things about Port Alberni, but what's really cool, Heather, is I represent 31 communities in our riding. So Port Alberni is just one of the many amazing communities in our riding. So like any given day, like this morning when I left at 6 in the morning to go to Parksville to speak at my first event at 7:30 this morning, I got to travel throughout many different communities today and have meetings all day. Some of them were on via Skype and internet, but I also got to drive by Cameron Lake, which is one of my favorite places, on the way to Port Alberni. I didn't get to stop, unfortunately, this time, but often I stop and have one of my phone meetings throughout the day at Cameron Lake, or one of the beautiful places. But Port Alberni, what's my favorite place in Port Alberni? The hearts of the people, because I love the people here. That's what, this is the heart of Vancouver Island, and I really see that in the way, the compassion, the empathy, the courage, the determination of people here to work collaboratively for the most vulnerable. There's no place I've ever been in Canada where I've seen that reflected more than Port Alberni. So Port Alberni is like, I talk about Port Alberni all over Canada, because I'm the critic for mental health and for harm reduction. And I get to tell the story of how Port Alberni wants to help their most vulnerable more than any other place I've ever been in my life. And we need to continue to do that. So I'm excited to be the messenger, and really cool to be on your show, Heather, because I met you when you were just little. And you're now an incredible journalist and media star. And so I've been really excited to be on your show finally. So thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.